Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 25 of the episode number 26 of the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks alongside Scott Hairston, former Major League Baseball outfielder. I'm Joey Jarzynka. We cannot thank you enough for tuning in on this Tuesday evening from the East Coast, 10:04 Eastern Time, where Scott is right now in Arizona, 7:04 Pacific Daylight Time. Scott, how are you and how are things going where you are?
Things are going okay. I mean, pretty hectic in this pandemic, of course, but I'm just trying to manage the best I can. I have two boys and a wife to care for, so but we're holding up pretty good.
Good. Really, really happy to hear that. And for those who are tuning in for the first time, today is part 2 of Doubleheader Tuesday. We cannot thank you enough if you were joining us earlier today on the Essential Wrestling Podcast and coming here back about 2 hours later and sticking around for both Scott and myself's conversation this evening. It's going to be tons of fun. So really glad to hear that you and the family are doing all right. And obviously we know your brother, Jerry. How's he doing?
Oh, he's doing okay. I was just texting him a couple minutes ago. He's just playing a lot of golf, and he's going to have to be going back to work pretty soon here since the baseball season started. So he does pregame and postgame for the Dodgers, so he's getting prepared for that. I believe he's in LA right now as we speak.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. And that was actually one of the questions that I was actually going to ask you a little bit later. Might as well ask you now. Now that you were speaking with your brother, Jerry Hairston Jr., we know that he is on the Dodgers telecast on Sportsnet Los Angeles, third season now, if I'm not mistaken, or in that range of time that he's been on those broadcasts. And now with all of the coronavirus spiking in Los Angeles and the possibility of moving games, and obviously now where you are, Arizona, it's slowly going up. In Florida, on the East Coast, it's going up. So has Jerry told you anything possibly where he might be broadcasting from, possibly in his living room?
He hasn't mentioned that, but I'm thinking he's going to be in the studio. They might be having like a social distance thing in the studio. Maybe they have to rearrange the desks or wherever they film, I would imagine. But I mean, you have to be pretty cautious if you're going to be in the same building with several people. I mean, the last time I was there in, I think, 2017 or 18, there was about 50, 60 people that were in the building at the same time. But again, they might have different waves of workers that come in just to keep those numbers down. So I haven't really spoke much about him, but I hope he's going to be careful, because I mean, it'd be terrible if one of my family members or somebody else in studio would get the coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, the interview is all about Scott, but we had to ask about Jerry Jr. Just to start things off. But again, the interview focused on you. For those that are also just tuning in for the first time, every single one of our guests, except one, just a few episodes ago, has ties with the East Coast. And the reason why we have Scott Hairston on as well, not only because we really appreciate him coming on, but also you were at one point a New York Met. You were also a Washington National. And we'll get to that in just a few moments. But to start things off, you were born in Fort Worth, Texas. And you played high school baseball, Canyon del Oro High School in suburb of Tucson. And you were also a teammate of someone very, very familiar to us, known as Ian Kinsler. Talk about your time in high school ball, and obviously, it's a mood question. Obviously, you come from a long lineage of baseball players. Obviously yesterday we'll get to that 100th anniversary of Negro League Baseball and Sammy Hairston. Your grandfather being a part of the Chicago White Sox and the first ever African-American to suit up for the White Sox. We'll get to that in a second. But talk about your time in high school and how things evolved for you to become a professional ball player.
Well, a lot of people don't know this, but I did graduate from CDO High School in Tucson, but my first 3 years were in Naperville, Illinois. So I went to Naperville North High School for 3 years, and then I played my senior year at CDO. And on that team, Ian Kinsler was our second baseman. I was a shortstop. And we had two other big leaguers. Brian Anderson was our center fielder, and Chris Duncan, who just recently passed, which was very unfortunate. He was our first baseman. So we did have four big leaguers on that team. We had a lot of talent. I mean, not obviously Ian was a big talent, but I just felt really fortunate to be on that team. I mean, just to have four big leaguers on that one team in high school was just pretty phenomenal. So I had a great senior year. I mean, because being around those guys, we just kind of pushed each other, and we all wanted to play Major League Baseball, and it helps when you're surrounded with guys like that. And then I went on to college again at Central Arizona College my sophomore year. Ian came as well and played a year there, his freshman year, my sophomore year. So we were able to be teammates again, which was really cool. And my roommate at the time was Rich Harden. He was a pitcher for the Oakland A's and Texas Rangers. So yeah, from high school to college, a lot of big league players that came out of there.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable, especially again with the lineage that you come from. Were there any other offers that you received? Again, with, we don't want to beat a dead horse to death, but obviously the Hairston last name runs pretty far back, as we mentioned just a few seconds ago. So when you hear a name like Hairston, were there other schools picking up the phone trying to get in contact with you?
There was a few. There's a few Midwest schools, again, because that's where I'm from, Illinois. And I didn't really want to go back to the cold, to be honest with you. My family had just moved to Arizona, and we got a good taste of what that was like. And I wanted to be close to home. And so I was looking to go initially to ASU, and they decided to go the other route and pick a shortstop from California. And they weren't going to give me the scholarship that I was looking for. And so in turn, I went to Central Arizona College for 2 years with hopes to maybe go in ASU afterwards. But I was picking the third round after my sophomore year at Central by the Diamondbacks, and then made the transition to pro ball.
Now, when you were drafted in the third round by the Arizona Diamondbacks, and, obviously being your hometown team, if you will, where you are now and where you mainly grew up, your initial reaction of being drafted, and again, obviously the lineage is far back, but just the thought of, my goodness, Scott Hairston could be in the major leagues, and not only in the major leagues, but you are a pretty high draft pick. And regardless of saying, third round, there's how many rounds in Major League Baseball drafts? Obviously this year was 5, but we've seen past in 40 rounds, and you were picked third round. Talk about the feeling of being drafted by a professional baseball team.
That was a great feeling. I mean, it's something that I hoped for many years. I mean, my dream was always to play big league baseball for as long as I can remember. So the anticipation of that year, I knew that it was either going to be drafted that year after my sophomore year, or try to find a place to play. And I was ready. I knew that was the right time for me, and I just focused that year and gave it my best. I was picked in the third round, and I remember I was at my parents' house, and my mom and dad were we were all in the same room, huddled around the computer. And so I got the phone call. The phone rang, and right after the phone rang, I saw my pick on the screen. So it was I just remember my mom was so excited. She was like shaking. And so I talked to the scout that drafted me, and as soon as I hung up the phone, I got a big hug from my parents. It said they were very proud of me. And it was, I still actually have I think my sister was able to grab a camera and take a picture of my parents, like 2 minutes after I was drafted, and I still have that up in my house by our kitchen table. So that was a great memory. It's a dream come true. It felt like it was yesterday. It's just been a whirlwind ever since.
Yeah, that's really remarkable, and actually gave me the chills too, just to think of your loved ones, capturing the moment when their son gets drafted into professional baseball. So, and for those again that do not know, 2001 Major League Baseball draft in the 3rd round by the Arizona Diamondbacks was the time when Scott was drafted. So we keep moving forward in your time with professional ball. And now obviously we got past you getting drafted, and now is the time when things start to get into gear and you have to get into game mode. And there was a little bit of a time, Scott, when you were an infielder, obviously, and throughout your whole professional career, you were an outfielder, you played second base. What was the whole deal there? Was it where did you transition, or was it where, play me wherever and I could get it done?
Well, the Diamondbacks came to me after my first year, after my rookie season, and they told me, hey, this offseason we want you to work on the outfield because this is where you're going to be next year.
Yeah.
So they made it pretty clear that they didn't view me as a second baseman anymore or an infielder. And I was okay with that because I think scouting myself, I mean, to be honest with you, I was adequate at best at second base. And at that big league level, you have to be pretty remarkable to be a starter. So I think I felt comfortable making that transition because I knew that that's where my future was going to be. Did I think that I was going to be in AAA the next year? No, but that's where they sent me back to AAA. And also the following year as well to learn the outfield. And I just think overall my abilities was more of an outfielder. I was able to use somewhat of my speed. I didn't really have I never had a good throwing arm. I think it was average at best, but I think I enjoyed my time a lot more in the outfield than I did in the infield.
Now, when you were sent down the first time, as you just previously stated, to AAA, and to work on the outfield, what is that like when you get drafted, and there's you figure to yourself, okay, you got to move, you're moving up the ladder, but now you kind of take a little, step down. What are the thoughts there? Is it like a punch to the gut where, okay, listen, I got to go, they're sending me down, they're assigning me to AAA. What are the thoughts there in your mind when the moment that happened?
Yeah, it's somewhat of a grim reality because, again, there was talk of possibly me switching over to the outfield even during the year when I was playing second base. So it was kind of inevitable, but I just tried my best to stay at second base for as long as I can because I know that at that position they didn't really have anybody ahead of me. But in the outfield, that's a different story. They had a lot of prospects in the outfield that I knew in the minor leagues, and I said, okay, if they move me out in the minor leagues, then I'm going to be kind of on borrowed time. Am I going to be a starter? Am I going to be a bench player? So it's really, I mean, to compare it, I guess, in other terms, let's say if somebody has a position at their job and that they train for years and then they're asked to do something else, I mean, that's somewhat of a tough transition usually. And so for me, I had to go down and I spent a lot of the offseason working on my outfield and then came to spring training with 2 gloves, infield glove, outfield glove. Played a pretty good outfield during spring training, and I thought leading up to that, they would keep me along the ride all spring training to get a good look at me. But unfortunately, I was one of 2. They made for the first cut in spring training, they just cut me and Jerry Gill, who was an infielder, which kind of shocked me too, because I thought that they were going to give me a good look in spring training, but I think we had just started playing games. I think we had 3 or 4 games that we played in spring training, and then they cut me and sent me down to AAA. So what I mean by being cut is cut from the big league team, sent down to AAA camp. Yeah. So that was kind of really disappointing because, again, I expected them to give me a good look at what I've worked on all off season long. And then once that day came, the first cut, they called me into the office and told me that they were going to send me down. Then, yeah, that was a lot of disappointment, but that kind of lit a fire under me. And then I just worked hard and found my way back to the big leagues.
Yeah, and never look back. But which obviously is great because, you know, if you don't work for it, you're simply not going to get to where you want to get to. So your time in Arizona came to an end in 2007 when you were traded to San Diego. Now, another tough question, obviously, is when you get traded. So, you know, we've asked a few people on our program about what we've heard with football. And I don't know if you're a football fan, but we've heard not too far from where you are in Houston when Brandon Cooks was traded from Los Angeles from the Rams. And he had said that he considers it almost like, well, I'm wanted when you're traded 3 times. So now, because, you know, you were traded a couple of times, you know, you've played on multiple different teams. What are your thoughts on, you know, being traded? Did you figure that, you know, you were wanted? Did you feel like, all right, well, Arizona gave up on me? What were your thoughts? And then how do you compare that to, obviously, as you were saying, you know, being cut down to AAA early in the season? Talk about that.
Yeah, so Arizona was a team that drafted me. So they were the first ones to give me opportunity. And throughout the minor leagues, I had pretty good years, and I was considered their number 1 prospect for quite a few years. And in this day and age, when that happens, you see those kids right away in the big leagues, and then they get the support, they get the attention. They pretty much, I wouldn't say pave the way for players like that, but they get their opportunities. It's a young man's game now. So when I was coming up in the early 2000s, it was a veterans game. So it was a different time. They didn't really give, and depending on the organization, they didn't really give the young guys that much room to grow. I believe in my case, this is the way I felt and still feel to this day. I believe that the Diamondbacks gave up on me. I think they gave up on me not only that year in 2007, but I think they gave up on me 3 or 4 years before that, unfortunately. So, and that just goes by the lack of opportunities that they gave me. They might have an argument, but I think the numbers speak for themselves. But I think at the time when they traded me, and especially me as a player, I thought that I was worth more than they saw me. So I felt kind of disappointed and that I was traded, because I felt that I wanted to at least get a fair chance with the Diamondbacks who drafted me before they would trade me. But I felt like they didn't give me a fair chance. And not only myself, there's quite a few players I believe that they dealt through the same thing. But when I got traded to San Diego, I was fortunate enough to go to an organization that was filled with veterans that really led the right way and treated everybody the same. Didn't matter if you had a year or 2 in the big leagues or if you had 20, they still made you feel like you were part of the team. So that's a team that I went on, and that changed my career. That really ignited me. And San Diego just changed my whole perspective of what the big leagues was like, because with the Diamondbacks, I didn't really have a good taste in my mouth. When I speak about the Padres, I mean, my smile is so big, and I have so much respect for that organization.
Yeah. It's obviously it's a little difficult, you know, to speak about that. And again, we really appreciate you speaking about obviously the time there, and especially because, you know, it was obviously a tough transition. But then you look at you bursted onto the scene in SoCal, and you became this. This is a remarkable number. The 7th Padre to hit a home run in 3 straight at bats. And this was when you just started your tenure in San Diego as well. First games as a starter. And again, to be a part of 7 Padres to hit 3 straight home runs in 3 straight at bats. Does that, give you a little, I don't know. How does that make you feel when you hear something like that?
Yeah, it feels good. I mean, I at the time, I mean, I knew I had done it, but I didn't think I was making somewhat history in the Padres. I mean, somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, yeah, do you have this player so-and-so was the last person that did it, and that was 12 years ago, and then there's only 5 guys before him that did it." And I was just like, really? Oh, okay, that's awesome. And so I felt proud of that because that's really hard to do. I mean, at that level, I mean, and I guess people are still talking about it, and that's something that I can tell my boys. I don't think they know that at all, but again, it was a time period in my career where I felt that it was a new opportunity, and for me to do that, and it felt like, hey, I'm making my mark. I'm starting to prove to people that I belong here. And then the way the Padres, the organization, reacted to my play in 2007, I mean, they made me feel so welcome. So I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful to make an early impact. I think that's the key.
Yeah, when obviously now with San Diego, just by looking at some of the numbers, you played 303 total games, 227 hits in 905 at bats. You finished your tenure in Southern California, 251 batting average, 45 home runs, 116 RBIs total. And especially with the long lineage of history in San Diego, Tony Gwynn obviously standing out the most. And then just to have Scott Hairston on there and to see the humbling attitude that you're presenting right now is really unbelievable. And then you came out here to play for the New York Mets. And then you also accomplished another feat. And one of which was you became the 10th New York Met to hit for the cycle, the 10th New York Met. And again, obviously, out here in New York, okay, well, the Mets stink, whatever. But again, let's be real here. There's a lot of history with the New York Mets, and you put yourself in that history book, Scott. Talk about that. Hitting for the cycle, April 27th, 2011, in Coors Field in Colorado.
Yeah, what a great night that was. I mean, it just happened so fast. I remember, I think I started off with a broken bat single up the middle, and that was nice, starting the day off with a single. And then I hit the home run, and then I believe I hit the triple after that. And then so I was just thinking about it on the bench, and usually as a player, you don't really want to think about stuff like that. But I just thought, hey, wait a minute. So I'm 3 for 3, and okay. And then it was only like the 5th inning. So I said, man, I get a couple cracks at, I'm going to get 2 more at bats. And so I said, well, I need to try to hit a double somehow just to drive the ball. And so I was able to do that. I hit the ball in the gap, and I hit it over Carlos Gonzalez's head. And if I maybe could have stretched it out to a triple, but I wasn't. I just broke it down halfway from home or from first to second. But that was a great moment. And I'm so happy to be and talk about the rich history of the Mets. I mean, I'm so happy that I'm a part of that history because, again, I mean, to talk about the 69 Mets and all those Mets great teams that, I grew up watching, 86 Mets, and to be a part of the history, to be named, I guess, when it comes to the cycles that were hit in history, to be top 10 of that list is just very, very, I mean, I hate using proud because I don't consider myself a proud person. I guess happy and really thankful that I'm a part of such a rich history.
again, extremely humbling words that that you're speaking about. And with the Mets also, you hit a personal best 20 home runs in 2012 as well. Another personal milestone for you. Just to be able to do it with major league teams. And not only, again, setting records for yourself, setting records for teams, but again, as I just said a couple of seconds ago, setting your own records. 20 home runs may not seem like a lot, but for you at the time it was. Talk about that. And, just to accomplish something new every single day and who it didn't matter if it was with a different team, it was with a major league team.
Right. So that 20 home run mark, that's something that I think for players like myself, I mean, I hit that number a couple of times in the minor leagues, but I had never hit that number 20 in the big leagues. So that was like a personal goal for me. And I was able to do it with the Mets. And being around guys, I mean, the first one I think about is Ike Davis. We talked about it. And he knew that I was putting a little pressure on myself. So he put his arm around me and said, hey, it's going to happen. You just got to let it happen. Because I think I was sitting on 19 for like 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks seemed like a month and a half. But it happened at the very last game of the season in Miami. We were playing the Marlins. And ironically, I had a dream the night before. My wife was with me visiting in Miami for the last series of the year. And I woke up that morning, and it was a day game. And I said, you know what I dreamt last night? I dreamt that I hit number 20. And she looked at me like, really? I said, yeah. And then that's all I said. And then it happened. It was kind of like a dream. And went over the fence, and then Ike was the first person I heard yell when it went over. Gave me a big hug when I got in the dugout. And it was just a great moment. I mean, I just think about that team, and we had a lot of great guys. And what a great city. I mean, that was like my first time being in New York for an extended amount of time. So I got to do a lot more than I did in the past. And my family was able to go around the city when I was out of town and experience that. My boys still remember it like it was yesterday. It was awesome being in New York, and I loved it. I was hoping I'd stay a couple more years, but I know the business side of baseball, it probably wasn't going to happen. So then I ended up being a free agent after 2012.
Yeah. And to be out here, with, as I said earlier, we were talking about the Mets and, with the media and everything out here. And, again, with the history of the Mets, there's a lot of great history. And again, to have your name put into the media guide under the 10th person to hit a cycle for the New York Mets, is really amazing. And just to entice our local viewership here in the New York area, or where I am on Long Island, and obviously a lot of Mets fans out here. I'm a Yankees fan, but obviously I'll still ask about the Mets because I have a lot of friends who are Mets fans, and they wanted me to ask you this. Talk about playing with David Wright. He is the obviously at the time number 2 king of New York. Obviously Derek Jeter being number 1. And that's unbiased. That's just the truth. As you know, and all of Major League Baseball knows that. But playing with David Wright, playing at Citi Field, talk about that.
Yeah, I had a lot of respect before I even became his teammate of David. I mean, just the way he went about his business, you can tell he was very focused and determined. And then I got to know him, obviously, personally as a teammate. And my respect grew for him. I mean, you talk about a guy that comes to the ballpark doing all that it takes to win. His preparation was excellent. His focus was excellent. I mean, I don't think there's a day that went by where he let up. I mean, he would do his same routine in the batting cage. He was just like a machine. And so not only that, he did it in the big city. And he handled the media, you guys know, extremely well. And he treated everybody the same. I don't think that anybody can say that about David, where he treated teammates that you've known for a long time or just come on the team differently. He was a jokester, though. I'm not sure if anybody else knows that outside the clubhouse, but oh yeah, he would keep the clubhouse laughing, and he was pranking people and stuff like that here and there. So he kept it light. But once it was 20 minutes before game time, he'd zone it up and he put that game face on, and he just gave it 100% every night. So I was thankful to actually get to know him personally as a teammate, because I had that high respect for him beforehand.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing to get to be able to play with someone of high value, not only in Major League Baseball, but also in the New York metropolitan area as well. So following your time with the Mets, you obviously had a little warm place in your heart for New York, which is great. Really appreciate that here. But you then, following your time with the Mets, you signed as a free agent with the Chicago Cubs. Then you'd go on to the Windy City, obviously, play on the north side. So you went to play for the Cubs, another big city, another fantastic ballpark. We'll get to that in a few seconds, but talk about your time in Chicago, and then end off with Chicago deep dish style or New York style pizza. And I'm sure you've gotten that almost every single day of your post playing career.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So that pizza question, I'd have to say Chicago deep dish.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in Illinois, and I had that so many times, but I do have to say New York is a close second. I mean, I'd have the clubhouse guys order pizza all the time. And so I had New York pizza when we come off the road. And, but I mean, again, it's kind of what you're used to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all of us can say that, not only about pizza, but a lot of things. For what you're used to, you tend to enjoy more. But my time in Chicago, answering your question, it was kind of bittersweet, because it was nice coming back home and being around friends that were diehard Cubs fans. They got to come to the ballpark and see me play. At the same time, I started off really slow. I mean, it's really cold in Chicago, not to give that a big excuse, but I mean, it's tough to play when you can't feel your hands. And I wasn't an everyday player, so I was coming off the bench a lot, and I thought I was going to get a lot more playing time than I did. That didn't happen, and it's really hard to perform at a high level when you're not getting everyday at bats, let alone maybe one or two starts a week. And when it's cold and you're facing a number one and number two starter, every time I went out there, it seemed like I was facing a number one and number two. But it was a challenging time in Chicago. And then once I started to heat up, once the weather started to warm up, I started to get hot and the ball started carrying more. And for a moment there, I thought that I would stay on the team because there was talks of me being traded. But I said, wow, okay, I just hit 3 home runs in the last 6 days. Maybe they'll hang on to me. But then they ended up trading me to the Washington Nationals. So,
yeah. Now, when you had gone to the Nationals, now you're playing for a team, obviously, that has a lot of potential to go to the playoffs. And speak about your time playing for Washington, 2013. This was the time that, Ryan Zimmerman was, really in his prime. This was Jason Worth. Bryce Harper I think he was playing left field at the time, or was the starter at that point. Talk about your time in Washington.
I had a great time in Washington. Again, it was a situation where I was going to be a backup, because they had, I believe it was Bryson left, Denard Span in center, and Jason Worth in right field.
Yeah.
So it was going to be a situation where I knew I was going to be spot starting. And I was kind of hoping at the time that I would go to a team, if I was going to be traded, to where I can play every day, so I can prove to major league scouts that I can handle the everyday job. But again, I went to the Nationals, and again, at the time, it was bittersweet. Looking back on it, I'm kind of glad I went there, but I just wanted a better opportunity at that point in my career, because again, I was just coming off that 20 home run season with the Mets, and I was trying to repeat that same type of year the next year. Unfortunately, I was in a platoon role, and it was hard to do that. But the Nationals, again, talk about big names: Harper, Span, Worth, Ian Desmond, Ryan Zimmerman, of course, Steven Strasburg, Gio Gonzalez. I mean, we had a lot of guys, all-stars on that team. And it was fantastic being around those guys. I still talk to a few of them regularly. I talked to Ian Desmond. I talked to Denard Span regularly, and they became my close friends. So, and my kids, they remember the times in Washington where we were winning all the time, and we were in the playoffs, and things were good, and the ballpark, and being on the field, and being around the guys. I mean, it was just a fun time. And again, looking back on it, yeah, do I wish I had more playing time? Sure. But I mean, you can't have everything in this game. I mean, you have to really take what you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't take anything for granted. The biggest thing here, obviously, is, you want to get to the Fall Classic, but in order to get there, you have to make your way through the playoffs. So 2014, you were with the Nationals. That was your final year in Major League Baseball. And you unfortunately, you and the Nationals unfortunately fell to the San Francisco Giants 3-1. Talk about your time in the playoffs, because not many times did you get there.
Yeah, so I wasn't on that roster, actually. I didn't make the playoff roster, unfortunately, the first round. I was got to be added to the roster for the second round. So I was kind of disappointed when I didn't make the playoff roster. After having close to 10 years of service time in the big leagues, I wasn't on the roster. But I had high hopes for that team. I mean, I think we had the most wins in big league baseball, and I thought we were going to go to the World Series that year. I really did. But I think we had a lot of time off, too much time. I think we had about 8 days off, and you can only do so much. Yeah, I think we scrimmaged maybe twice during that time. So I think what happened when we came back, a lot of our hitters the timing was off a little bit, and we ran into a team, San Francisco Giants, who were red hot.
Yeah. And
they were pitching well. They were doing everything while hitting well. And unfortunately, we just couldn't overcome what they're throwing at us. So that year ended really prematurely. And again, after that last game, I remember just sitting at the table in San Francisco after I ate, and I just told myself this could be very, very likely this could be my last game in the big leagues because of the year that I had. And but once I got home and years started to go by, and I tried to make a comeback in 2016, that didn't work out too well. But I think looking back on it, I'm happy about my career, and I'm fortunate and I'm blessed to be around that long.
Yeah. To be in Major League Baseball for more than a day for some people is, again, longer than what some people have had, where we've only seen them make, their pitching debut or any debut, and then you never hear from them ever again. But we got to hear Scott Hairston's name for 10 whole years. Really, again, amazing. And it does not only have to do with the Hairston name. It is because you proved yourself. You went out there and you proved yourself. So, and you also proved yourself in 2009 when you also were asked to play for Team Mexico in the World Baseball Classic with your brother Jerry. So we said earlier we're not going to talk about him, as much as we were earlier, but now you and your brother are back on a team together, Team Mexico. And what was the significance of Team Mexico? We'll let you answer that question.
So my mom was born and raised in Mexico, and so she didn't leave Mexico until she was 25. She married my dad. So my dad met my mom down, he was playing in winter ball in Hermosillo in the early 70s. So they went, I guess they met through my dad's teammate. So my dad's teammate's girlfriend knew my mom, and they arranged a dinner date. So my dad was kind of impressed by my mom, and my mom knew very little English because she was a grade school teacher, and my dad knew very little Spanish because of what he picked up playing down there in Mexico. So they ended up dating, and then back then you had to write letters when you couldn't see each other. My dad went back to the United States afterwards, and then they kept in touch. And then so when my dad went back to winter ball the next year, he said, "I don't want to go back home without you." So he proposed, and then they got married down in Mexico first, and then they got married in the United States. Well, they went to a courthouse, I believe. But that's the whole history of how my parents met and why I played for Team Mexico. So a lot of people don't know that about me.
I like that, the Hairston love connection. I think that could be the title of this show. Excellent.
Yeah, it's nice, and it's good history. I mean, I love talking to my parents about it, and how during those times, I guess being an African American player coming down to Mexico playing in the early 70s, it was kind of an awkward situation for my dad. And so when my mom and dad started dating, I mean, the town of Hermosillo embraced it. The team embraced it. They actually had a wedding ceremony on the field, which you can kind of go on Google or wherever, you can look that up. Jerry and Esperanza Hairston being married on the baseball field, and there's pictures and everything. So, but yeah, it's one of the things that my dad and mom, they love talking about. And so I have still a lot of relatives in Mexico. My mom's side of the family are still down there.
That's pretty cool. And to be able to, again, to play for Team Mexico because of your mom, and because of your mom's side being from Mexico, which again is pretty cool because not a lot of people, including myself, ever knew that. And then when I was, doing my homework on Scott Hairston, I saw that, and that is definitely a cool fact. And then to be able to play for the World Baseball Classic, to be able to play for your mom's native Mexico. Talk about that feeling to be representing the flag.
Oh, it was a great feeling. I mean, my mom, I remember like it was yesterday, the day she found out. I mean, there's a news article that came out in Hermosillo. They announced the roster of the team. My mom was getting phone calls, and she called me, and then she called my brother, and she was just so excited. And that made her feel very proud. And then not only that, I mean, me personally, what an honor. I mean, what an honor to be called and wanted to represent Mexico as a nation in baseball. That's something that, I mean, to this day, I'm really thankful for, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I kind of expected my brother, because he was in the big leagues for quite some time, and he's kind of made his mark. But for the both of us too, to have that honor together was fantastic. So it was a joy. It was a blessing. I mean, I was just so happy and thankful whenever I put on that jersey, and talking to the fans. A lot of them spoke English, and hearing them cheering whenever we were going out and stretching. It was just awesome.
Do you speak Spanish?
Negativo.
Okay. All right. Now to be playing with your brother Jerry. Now, honest question. I don't think did you guys ever cross paths or did you guys ever play together? I don't know if you guys ever played together on the same team at one point.
We did for the 2010 Padres. We did.
Now, how was that feeling to be now? Obviously, 2009, 2010, back-to-back years. Obviously, not on the same, the same playing field. In Major League Baseball, and then also on the World Baseball Classic stage. What was that like to be playing with your sibling?
No, it was great. I mean, we never had that opportunity growing up because he's 4 years ahead of me. So, when he was in high school, I was in junior high. And then once he started going to college and I was in high school, we never really were close to being on the same team. So we knew after that, the only opportunity that we would have is if I would make it up to the big leagues. Because by the time I left high school, he was already in the big leagues. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, you got to get up here. And so I did. And then so a few years went by. So pretty much six years into my big league career, that's when it happened. And it was great. We had a great time together. We were on opposite sides of the locker room because we didn't want everybody to feel like it was like us just being isolated from the rest of the team. So he was on one end, I was on the other end. And we have different personalities too. So I guess that kind of helps. We didn't like hang out all the time. I mean, we didn't have the same teammates that we hung out with. So I think it gelled pretty good. And then obviously being on the same field with him was awesome. I mean, I'd be out in left field or center field and just look and see my brother doing his thing. And it's kind of surreal at times because not to say that I forgot about I was playing with my brother, but I was, man, this is so cool. This is all we're in the same big league game playing on the same team. And he's my cutoff man. The ball's hitting the gap, I throw it to him, and then he gets it to the next guy. So doing stuff like that together was pretty cool. And being in the same lineup, obviously there's times where he led off and I batted second. So we were on the on-deck circle together, like before the pitcher started. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it's really something that doesn't happen a lot in really many sports. And again, your family lines up with the Boone family as well. Obviously with Aaron Boone, manager of the New York Yankees, his family goes back numerous generations as well. And to be, a part of that, it's obviously, I'd love to ask him that question as well. But again, to be exactly what you said, to be his cutoff man, or for him to be your cutoff man, is got to be the coolest thing. And for your family, to go to a game and to watch that together, 2010 in San Diego, not only nice weather, but then also your parents can see their two sons just playing together. How cool is that? And what is it like what was it like for your parents? Did you ever ask them, say, what is the feeling like? And also for you too, because you're a father and you have two boys yourself.
Right. Yeah. I can see it in my parents' eyes that they were very proud and really enjoying coming to the game and just being all together as a family. Because again, what they were used to is going to a game and my brother and I were on opposite teams, seeing us play against each other. And then after the game, not to say that it was awkward, but they didn't really know.
Who do you root for?
Yeah. Who do you root for? Who do you want to win?
Yeah.
But when we were playing together, obviously it was all about the Padres.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really joyous time, and my parents were very happy and proud of us that they made us know that. And we knew that we had to really enjoy it because baseball is the way it is. I mean, we were going to be free agents after that year, Jerry and I, and the chances of Padres signing us both back was next to impossible. And we were both playing for different teams after that anyway.
Yeah. Now, as we head into the top of the eighth of our conversation here, there's obviously a lot of things going on in the world between COVID, unrest in America. But let's stick to the former for just a quick second. And obviously, with a new decade and baseball at one point, Scott, not looking too promising. Things obviously have gotten, let's say, figured out to an extent. 60 games will be played. And your thought, it could be brief, however you want to explain it or say it. With everything going on right now, with just everything, to not be playing baseball and to be with your family, how good does it feel?
Well,
it's tough because,
It is.
Yeah.
It's tough because I miss baseball every year. I miss baseball every year when I see spring training, when I go to the games. And a part of me is thinking, man, I could maybe be out there still playing. I mean, I still feel pretty good. And I still have dreams to this day that I'm back playing in the big leagues. Now it's a little different. Now I think to myself, and I saw a couple players that have they're not going to play their season in 2020. They opted out, which I understand and I respect that. And it's their decision, really, when it comes down to it's a personal decision. I asked my wife yesterday. I said, "Hey, I wonder what I would have done because I really don't know. I don't know, and it's tough to say because I'm not playing anymore. Sure, I'd like to say, oh no, I'd be playing because I miss baseball. If I was a free agent in 2019 and I got re-signed for 2020, why wouldn't I play? But then you got to look back to, well, hey, if you were to play, there's going to be risk. There's going to be risk, and then what if my parents? I bring it back home to my parents. All that stuff, all those questions that every player right now that is playing, they're going through their mind. Is it worth it? Is it worth going and playing or taking the year off, putting my family at risk? It's going to be uncomfortable. I think every player is going to be uncomfortable, and I wouldn't say paranoid, hopefully not, but when you're sitting on the bench with each other, you're just it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be nice seeing baseball, yes, but it's a tough world for everybody. No matter what job, no matter what profession, you just going to the grocery store alone is nerve-wracking. But these guys are going to be around each other for, 67 days or something like that. More so now because they're going to have spring training. It's going to be a nerve-wracking time, and hopefully they can find joy of that. And I pray that nobody gets sick. And I just hope everybody stays healthy and keeping their distance and being safe.
It's obviously a tough topic to discuss because, again, it's not only COVID. It's, obviously with everything else that's going on and injustice in America. And we'll get to that in just a few moments with your grandfather, Sammy. And again, for those that are just tuning in, the first Negro leaguer to ever suit up, the first ever African American player to suit up for the Chicago White Sox. Did I get that right? I got that.
Did.
I had to. Yeah. So I just want, and also with yesterday being the 100th anniversary of the Negro League ball just yesterday, obviously is humongous in not only in the world but also in the Hairston family as well. So we'll stick to a little bit of a positive here just before we go back. And I'm sure, again, you've watched The Last Dance in your time off. We've gone from here all the way back to here. So we'll go just little by little back. So your time in Major League Baseball, your favorite American League city and your favorite National League city.
Oof, that's a tough one. City as in ballpark or city as in visiting? So it's a difference there. Visiting city whenever you're on the road.
And you know what? Sure. Ballpark. Why not? Let's hear it. Your favorite.
I'll answer both, actually, on both
okay.
sides of it.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's do National League first. National League, my favorite ballpark is San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
I like San Francisco. My favorite city was San Diego.
Okay.
I love San Diego, the town, the beach. San Francisco, it had pockets of where it's nice, but that's not really a town that I would go visit right now or anywhere. Well, you don't want to go anywhere now.
Yeah. Stay in your four walls right now. That's it. Yeah.
Right. New York City, you really can't beat it as far as the town.
Yeah.
The American League town. Ballpark, though, man, that's a tough one. There's a lot of ballpark. Old Yankee Stadium was awesome. Obviously, it's not there anymore. The new Yankee Stadium is nice too. It's really, I'm not
It's
saying
different.
it's nice, but the history of the old one.
Right.
Boston, I mean, I like Fenway Park.
Yeah.
But, man.
Putting you on the spot here.
It's because I didn't spend a lot of time in the American League.
Yeah.
But I did. Now, favorite all-time park in the American League was Old Comiskey Park.
Okay.
That's where I grew up. And I don't know if, I love that. I love that stadium so much. But, yeah, Old Comiskey Park, old New York Yankee Stadium. Boston, that was really cool. Fenway Park was awesome. It's kind of like a tie for me. It's tough, but easy for me for nationally because I played so much. San Francisco Giants Stadium.
Mesquite Park. I like that. Yeah, that's that hasn't been that was demolished if I'm not mistaken. Oh my God, I think probably before I was born. I was born in 95, so that was early 90s, I think, right? In that range.
1990. You were born in 95?
I was born in 95, yeah. Yeah.
I was in high school when you were born.
Oh man. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm showing your age, Scott.
Yeah, that's okay. But no, I actually, so it was 1990. I remember like it was yesterday, and I was 10 years old, and we watched the Demolishing live on TV. They showed it on the news, and I cried out of nowhere. I mean, it's one of the few moments that I cried just on like that. I didn't know what was happening to me, but I'm like, why am I sobbing uncontrollably right now? And it was because I grew up in that stadium. I knew it was going to happen. I knew they were talking about it for months that the stadium's going to be demolished to this day. So come get your memorabilia, blah, 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 this and that. I knew it was coming, but then when I actually saw it, I just wept. And so I got a lot of love for that stadium.
Yeah, especially where really where you used to see old baseball games as well, for where the Chicago White Sox used to play. So now, obviously, we'll get back to the negative side of things, unfortunately, but some positives here, obviously. So let's talk about the lineage of the Hairston family. So let's get this underway. So we have a whole list here. So your brother Jerry Jr., your father, Jerry Sr., you are the nephew of Johnny Hairston, grandson of Sammy Hairston. So, again, with everything going on now, 100th anniversary of Negro League Ball was just yesterday. Sammy Hairston, as we said earlier, became the first ever African-American player in Chicago White Sox history. Okay, now, so with that being said, and with the anniversary yesterday, the centennial, if you will, talk about how much that means to you, especially with everything else going on as well, and to be proud of your grandfather.
It means a lot to me, more than words can really say. I mean, I grew up in a family, again, a baseball family that really appreciated my grandfather. Every time we went down to Alabama to visit him, I would just sit down. I remember, so I was the youngest boy in my family. My brothers were older than me, my cousins were older than me. So I would sit down on the floor, and then my dad and my older cousins and my brothers would have the couch with my grandfather, and he would share stories, talking. And so I heard all of those Negro League stories, even as a kid. And so that kind of painted the picture of what he went through. Man, that had an impact on me a lot. And I didn't really get a chance to ask him a lot of questions before he passed, but a lot of those things are kind of relived through the stories that you hear that the Negro Leagues have told in the past, the movies that we watched, the Jackie Robinson movie, just them traveling town, not being able to find places to eat or sleep. There's a lot of uncertainties, and the mistreatment, the racial slurs, things being thrown at them, you name it. And for them to have the courage and the determination to go jump over that hurdle and to play the game that they loved, and many of them hoped, and they fulfilled that dream of playing in the big leagues because they crossed over after Jackie crossed over. But and to have my grandfather go through those same things, and to be the first African American to play for the White Sox, to play in the Negro Leagues, that just ignited my motive to play baseball. I think. I mean, people say, yeah, what's your inspiration? What made you choose this profession? Or who did you look up to? And what caused you to be? Whatever profession you can ask somebody that, they'll say, okay, I wanted to be a violinist because of so-and-so, or I wanted to be a basketball player because of Michael Jordan. I want to be a football player because of Bo Jackson. But for me personally, I mean, hey, I saw my grandfather, or I didn't see him play, but I heard him tell those stories. My uncle, my dad. That was my inspiration, and that's really all that I needed. And that 100th anniversary was yesterday. That was just something then that I was scrolling through Instagram, and I was seeing a lot of people post, former big leaguers, and I posted yesterday as well. And for me personally, to post my grandfather in his Negro League uniform, there's not too many former big leaguers that can say that or do that. There was a lot of posts yesterday about Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, Jackie Robinson, but I was able to post my grandfather. That means the world to me, and I can tell my sons about it too. I told them, hey, this is a day to be proud. Your grandfather was amongst those players that played in the Negro Leagues. He played in that league, and he crossed barriers. He was the first African American to play for the White Sox. So always use that as motivation and be thankful for that.
Your boys can get there as well. If they try hard, they'll be able to get there for sure. And they'll be able to play. I wouldn't be surprised. Many years down the road, I see Scott Hairston's boys play in the major leagues. That would be really, really cool. And as you're telling the story, I'm getting chills because it's really, really amazing. Again, especially with what we're seeing going on today, and equality and everything like that. We want to, it's difficult to put it in words, but I think as the hour has gone on, Scott, I think where my focus is. So we're good there, but really, really good stuff about your grandfather and everything with crossing the barrier. Good stuff for sure. So moving forward, bottom of the ninth here. Something a little more smile worthy, if you will, as opposed to happy tears. Obviously, where you are, Scott, summer has been summer. There's really no other season where you are. It's just summer all year round. So for us out here in New York, summer just became official about 2 weeks ago. So we've asked all of our guests, literally all 25, and you're going to be number 26, because we need something to look forward to. Again, with everything going on, we need to know, Scott Hairston, what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh man, favorite ice cream flavor? I would say cookies and cream.
Cookies and cream. We have to put that down here. Okay, so that is, let's see, how many people have said cookies and cream here? 1 and 2. Okay, all right. So you are number 3 out of 26 to have cookies and cream. I like that. That's good. All right, excellent. So yes, and the reason why, Scott, if you're wondering why I'd ask such a ridiculous question on a baseball interview, is because, again, we need something to look forward to when you're staying inside all these freaking months.
That's right.
It's true, because when you're told to stay inside and things happen, a little mentally. Now, this is a perfect segue. During these uncertain and rough times, we have aspiring athletes. Aspiring baseball players, more specifically broadcasters, writers, whatever it may be, any profession. And they kind of go downhill when you're told to stay inside, especially a sport of baseball when you have to be outside. You got to, you want to get better out on the field to be able to throw, whatever the case may be. And some people might not have the luxury of throwing in a backyard or even throwing in a street without, hitting a car or breaking a window, etc. And especially during the month of April, we say this every episode, April showers bring May flowers. Yes, but out here on the East Coast in April, it was raining a lot and people were told to stay inside. What is your advice to the young aspiring athlete to keep their head up during this time in history? This is going to go down in the history books as one of the weirdest times and historical times in our world's history.
Right. You have to get creative during this time. I mean, I think about this, the times that we had in Naperville where we couldn't go outside for over a week. It was so cold. And so the wind chill was deadly cold, and we would go in the basement, and my brothers and I would get a tennis ball and we'd throw it to each other. We'd get on our knees and work on our hands and kind of play soft catch in the basement. Stuff like that, you can get creative. So a person in New York, if you're inside indoors and you don't have much space, hopefully you have another brother to work on your hands. You have a little tennis ball, and then you just toss it to each other. Or if there is a baseball book, an inspiring book to read. Usually kids nowadays, they have phones or they have an iPad that they can go online to learn about a certain player, for instance, like Jackie Robinson or Josh Gibson or Derek Jeter
or you
or me. But I'm talking about like motivation, inspirational stuff. A kid can find something that interests them, and they can change their whole perspective on what they had before, the life that they had before. Now life is just different, unfortunately, and we have to find new ways to grow. So if you try to find new ways to grow, you have to ask yourself, okay, what are my interests? What am I passionate about? Maybe I can use this time to better myself in these areas of my life. For me personally, I read a couple books. Atomic Habits was my latest book by James Clear. And then I read a book, Let Love Have the Last Word by Common, the R&B artist and actor.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of gotten, I wouldn't say away from the norm, but I'm creating a new norm now for myself, and I'm kind of getting more comfortable with it. With my boys, fortunately, they're able to go outside and work on their hitting. We have a tee in the backyard. We have a pool, a basketball hoop, and things like that. There's certain things that they can be productive and outside. But I think personally and as a whole, I always tell people if they're feeling discouraged, I try my best to encourage them and shed a positive light. But we really, as a whole, have to appreciate what we have now instead of dwelling on what we don't have. And so it's good to think that way. Think about your blessings instead of what you don't have. And you know what? We all have phones. Most of us have phones or iPads or whatnot. Maybe text a relative and say, hey, do you want to FaceTime for 5 minutes? Haven't talked to, or maybe a cousin or a good friend that you haven't talked to in a while. Let's FaceTime for 5 minutes, catch up. Just stuff like that. I think that helps both yourself and the person that you get in contact with. So that's pretty much how I've been thinking about myself and making sure my boys feel loved. And my wife and I, we're trying our best to put them at a good frame of mind every day.
Yeah, terrific father figure you are there by just speaking about that and trying to make sure that they're also getting through this tough time, with no mental issues, because obviously, as we said earlier, it's not, it's affecting a lot of people, everybody. I know it affected, me as well. everybody, especially when you're, not only when you're cooped up at home, but, when you can only go outside and, where are you going to go? Where's the destination? Well, work's closed, parks are closed. You can only go out to the pool for so many times, or, obviously, and for your boys, which is great. I'm assuming, they're hanging out with their dad all the time, which is great. And obviously a little more than normal. The quality time with your family, and this will be the last question, the quality time with your family now is, obviously is so much more because, we've actually asked Chicago Cubs hitting coach Anthony Iapoce this question, because obviously as a not only as a major league hitting coach, but also for you as a major league baseball player, you were not around for, for certain family events or, for instance, Father's Day. Obviously you're a father. We've said this countless times throughout our conversation. Talk about that and talk about the time that you're able to spend with your family now, and just, you got to cherish that.
Right, exactly. And kind of like thinking about the life before. And I had a few years, obviously, when I retired and making the transition before all this went down. But we have to kind of use our time wisely, especially as parents, because, again, for those parents that are at home with their kids and their wives or husbands, they're not used to this, so they're like, wow, I mean, what do I do with all this time, man? But you really have to have the mentality like, hey, I can use this time to really get in touch psychologically with my kids, because there's a lot of time that goes by throughout a child's life where the parents are at work, they're traveling, they don't get to see mom and dad much, only maybe at dinner time and briefly at breakfast. So the parents could say, hey, I'm going to use this time during quarantine or shelter in place, whatever you want to call it, and really connect with my kids. And when this thing hopefully will get back to normal someday, somewhat of normal, I don't think it's ever going to be normal, but then
the new normal.
The new normal, then you want to come out of this saying, you know what, during that time, although it was kind of tough as a family, I really connected with my kids and kind of made up for the time that we lost their first some odd years of their life. Yeah. So, and I think that's, I guess, the right attitude to have as parents, because we all want that good connection with our kids. We never don't want them to come to us if they have a problem or if they're going through something psychological, especially during this time. You have to really have a pulse on what your kids are thinking about emotionally and if they're taken care of. And the only way to do that is really to put down the phones or maybe turn the TV off every now and then and just say, hey, how you guys doing? How you guys doing in this? Don't ever think that it's not tough for mommy and daddy, because it is. This is new to us too. But we want to make sure you guys are doing okay. And if there's anything that you need, let us know. Stuff like that. And all it takes is 10 minutes to do that.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's literally all of us. We have not been through this. 1918, 1919 was the last time that we've seen something like this with the Spanish flu, and that lasted, I think it was almost 700 days. And I don't really know anybody who's on this earth. 1918. That's almost
100 years.
100 years, 102 years ago. So. There's not many people out there who can say, hey, I remember that. So this is all new to us as well. So ladies and gentlemen, former Major League Baseball player Scott Hairston. Scott, thank you so much for joining me here this evening. And I really hope I didn't take too much of your time. And I hope that you stay healthy, you stay safe. And to your boys as well. I really hope that you get the quality time, and as you mentioned earlier, you make up, some of the years, hopefully in the next few months or however long the big question mark for how long this is going to be.
Well, thank you, Joey. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. It was nice talking about baseball again, and really appreciate you having me on. And
Absolutely.
hopefully you'll stay safe, you and your family.
Yes, thank you, man. I really do appreciate it. But just to conclude here, part 2 of Doubleheader Tuesday concludes here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks. Episode number 27 of the Primetime Rundown Zoom interview series will come to you on Thursday night, July 2nd, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be welcoming Los Angeles Kings beat writer from the fourth period, Dennis Bernstein, to our show, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So we do have another late night for you. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's Scott Hairston. I'm Joey Jarzynka. And for all of us at the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks, we'll see you next time. All right. Scott, thank you so much. I really appreciate it again.